we played 3 games. So that, I mean, really that's the biggest thing. You know, I think the thing that's been real positive is where we are better even than a year ago is inside the 10-yard line. You know, we have done, you know, other than the first football game, you know, been really efficient down there, and that's been really good to see. And I think that, you know, even Saturday, as I go back and you look at that football game, you know, I think a lot of it was situational, where you're trying to play within the flow of the game and get points where needed. So, you know, to me, I see we are further ahead in a lot of ways than we were a year ago in our ability to do some things that we couldn't do before, where, you know, getting into certain personnel packages, being able to get under center, being able to do some things that I think will really help us here in critical situations as the season goes on. And, you know, I know we weren't perfect on Saturday, but I think inside that 10-yard line is where I see, when you're really talking red zone football and goal line football, you got to do some good things, and I do think we're a little bit farther ahead than where we were before. So, you know, I think it is too early to sit here and maybe say, gosh, where are we or what are we, with only 3 football games so far being played, but and playing some good opponents. But I see some areas of improvement that where we wanted to make improvement, and, you know, I think time will tell of where do we get to in terms of that whole entirety as we move ourselves forward. But you know, I think some things of getting 32 the football and letting him be successful down there, that was our emphasis in the offseason, and it's been good to see that be able to happen against some good football teams. Yeah, I think the thing for us, period, and it's a good point on your end, Tommy, but I think the one thing, if you said, what's your greatest disappointment from Saturday? And, you know, the greatest disappointment that I see is we've turned the football over 3 times offensively. You know, we come off a season where we hadn't put the ball on the ground, you know, quite honestly, a year ago, to now you've done it 3 times. And, you know, I think the number one thing that I talked about in our meeting on Sunday is certainly that turnover margin. And we are not naive enough to say that we can't win or can win without that turnover margin. That's critical to our success. And so I think the emphasis on both sides of the football, offensively, take care of the football, defensively, continuing to find ways to create turnovers, I think that's really big. And, you know, we've had opportunities on the defensive side to create some of those. We just haven't gotten there, or, you know, we're inches from creating that turnover. And then offensively, same thing. You know, we've had opportunities to take care of the football, and we hadn't. So I think those things are what are our high red alert going into Big 12 play for us, and we must really strain on both sides of the ball to make that priority number 1 for us. And I do think it starts with just that. It starts with elite team speed. I think what he does such a great job is, you know, really recruiting with a plan of moving guys within his defensive structure that where their speed and athleticism can really show up. And I think, again, when you turn the videotape on and you watch them play, sometimes I jokingly said this last night, it's almost like they're watching them on fast forward. You know, they play, they know where they need to be, they're gap sound, they've got great gap integrity. And, you know, they play, he allows his players to play fast, and I think that's really big. And, you know, obviously his hand in schematically changing to personnel people and having more fast guys on the field. You know, he certainly started that trend, and I think he's adapted his own defense to allow that speed and that athleticism to really show up. So I think it all starts there, and he does a great job of that for sure. Yeah, you know, I think the foundation of it obviously is what I am excited about is 32 and 18 continuing to be guys that need the ball in their hands. And, you know, I think that for me, it's always started, our identity started with who are our players, formations, plays. And, you know, I think that is the key to success. The key to success is making sure you're continuing to find ways to get your best players the ball in critical situations. And, you know, I think that's where I think I felt really excited about what I saw Saturday, you know, that we could get 32 the ball and force feed it in his hands and allow him to have success. You know, I think the neat thing for me is now you've seen Deshaunte Jones start to do some really great things again within the offensive system, and he can be a guy that goes into that same mold. And, you know, I thought Johnny Lang maybe played we gave him some opportunities, and he took advantage of some opportunities, you know, and there's still some guys out there that'll be really exciting. Obviously, if we get Chase back, Charlie Kolar, some of those tight ends being really involved in what we're doing offensively too is great to see. And Matt Eaton and some of those other guys. But I do think it starts with who are your players and making sure that everything we do offensively revolves around those guys. And you know, I think that's the number one foundation for us. No, I think, you know, from my end talking, it's where you would see him being ready to play in a game. You know, but again, I literally, it's not coach speak. I'm not trying to mislead anybody. I think a lot of it is literally just seeing his progression through it. And you know, I think we're all really happy with where he's at right now and what he's doing, but it'll really be on his ability to get himself back. But believe me, nobody's working harder than he is to get himself back on the football field and be an asset for us and our football team. And we've seen really positive momentum right now from him. So I really think that's our time frame that we've been given is about 2 or 3 weeks. Well, you know, I think our situation was certainly unique going into this fall. You know, you had a true freshman that just got here. You know, you had Connor, who's at least been here a little bit and had some, you know, sustainability within the program and had some really meaningful reps. And, you know, as a matter of fact, 2 years ago, the last spring game that we actually played, if you guys remember, Connor hit a big field goal in that spring game that day. And I think that was the first time for me. It was like, oh, who is this guy? You know, and the other thing that I would say is you had Chris Francis, you know, and so that competition was certainly heated, and it was heated from the spring through fall camp. And I'll be honest with you, you guys asked me the question, who the heck's your kicker going into the start of the season? And I don't know if I ever gave you a concrete answer, because I don't know if I ever felt like there was a concrete answer to give you yet. And yet I think we all felt really confident that all three of those guys did some really good things in fall camp. But just like everything, in evaluating any position, who's consistently over the period of time doing what you're asking them to do, and do you feel like has earned the right to be the starter? And we try to judge every practice. We validate every kick, you know. And I think at the end of it, it was like, well, Connor's the guy that's earned the right to go out there to start the season. Now, you know, I still felt like you've got to go out and prove it a little bit under those lights and figure out, are we in the right situation? And again, that first game, not having that, you know, I wanted to see Connor Asali. You know, there was a lot of things that I still wanted to see, but I think when you saw and what you've seen so far in big situations and big moments, he stepped up, and it's been really fun to watch him do that. You know, he's a guy where you talk about these young 18 to 22-year-old student athletes earning the right to have success. He's a guy that's earned it, and sometimes when you have to earn it, you have to do it the hard way. What you get is almost a finished product in a lot of ways that's very confident in what he's doing, and that's what I see of Connor right now. I see a really confident football player that's going out and certainly confident in what he's doing. Yeah, that's a good question. What I think of Brock Purdy is probably has very little to do with those two plays. You know, I think Brock is a young man in our program that, again, the quarterback position's a little tricky, because you don't want to disrupt the flow of a football game, and especially how Zeb has been playing over the last 2 weeks certainly has given him the right not to disrupt the flow of the football game. But Brock is a young man that I think we all have great expectations, and those expectations have been garnered really because of his work ethic and what he's done since he's been on our campus. And you know, Brock's a guy that has, you know, multiple skills. He can run, he can throw. I think he's got a really great understanding of what we're doing offensively. And so I think we're all really excited about his development and growth. And it's kind of why I wanted him to get into a situation where, you know, it's still kind of on the line and you got to go in and play, and how do you handle it? I thought he did a really good job, and just to kind of create a little bit of, you know, kind of a little bit of adversity for him to see how he responded to it. And he's one play away from being our starting quarterback right now. So, you know, I thought it was whether it was the right time or not, I thought it was a good time to put him into the football game and watch his response. But I think he'll only grow, and you're going to see really good things from him. At what time and when, you know, for Brock, that'll be interesting to see. You know, I thought our D-line played, again, I thought they played really well. You know, they have been the one group, if you say the most consistent group on your football team through 3 games, that group has certainly been it. And, you know, Jaquan, my challenge to Jaquan through the offseason has been, there's been flashes of excellence of what we've seen that you have the ability to do, but great players have the ability to be great all the time. And I thought one of the things that's been really fun to watch his performance in 3 weeks is he's been a pretty consistent football player. You've seen big plays and consistency from him on almost every snap, and I thought he was certainly a game changer at times in that football game on Saturday, and maybe that's the best I've seen him take over a football game and use his skill to do that. So really, really proud of him, really excited for him, and yet also I think still great challenges out there. Can you continue to be that guy through the test of this entire football season for this team, but playing at a really high rate for us right now? Yeah, it's a really, really good question. We have totally changed our in-season philosophy. And a big reason is for questions like Brock Purdy and a guy like Hunter Sally, Johnny Lang playing in that. Colin Olson played in it, a week ago. Charlie Kolar played in it a week ago, and now these guys are playing for us. And to me, I think one of the things that it's a good thing. There's good depth on our roster right now, and there's only one 60-minute game a week that you get the opportunity to play. So how do you challenge these other guys who at some point are going to have the ability to play or need to play? And it probably takes me back to my Mount Union roots in a lot of ways. But at Mount Union, we used to play some of those young guys in JV games on Monday nights. So one thing we've tried to do a great job of is the varsity guys on Sunday. They handle their business, but then we as coaches get kind of those guys that maybe didn't get varsity reps on Saturday. We get to coach those guys individual, give them their full attention, so they're not always worrying about some scout scrimmages. On Tuesday, we'll do some things with those guys after practice, and then on Wednesday, we'll literally have kind of almost like a JV game on, now we won't play 60-minute game, but we'll certainly get some quality reps in for, whether it's 20 to 30 to 40 reps, in almost a game-like setting, and really manage through that. So we can evaluate, grade those guys out. Those guys, we'll watch the film with those guys on Thursdays, and then, really have the opportunity to continue to grow and develop those guys. And you just don't know, and with this new rule, I feel like in some ways, and in some ways the depth of your team, and we know injuries are going to happen, that you want those players prepared to play for you on those Saturdays when they get their opportunity. So whether it's worked or not for us, I don't know. Hopefully at the end of the year I'll have a better analysis of was this something that was positive, but that's kind of what we're doing right now, and I think we saw even last week it really helped us immensely. Colin Olson, a guy that had to start and play the entire football game, and he's a guy that played in the JV game the last 2 weeks prior to, and I thought that was big for him. Charlie Kolar the same way, and Anthony John, a lot of guys doing those things that I think it's allowed us to say, man, we trust those guys. We can put them in there, and I think they're ready to play. Well, he's another one of those guys that he gives you something that's different, and that something is elite speed. I think you saw on the kickoff return last week. You're inches away from breaking that thing wide open, and but that was the spark, quite honestly, that I felt like really changed the game. That big, we go down, we end up scoring on the touchdown, and from there it was like, we kind of settled in, and that was after the turnover and they scored. But I thought that was a huge point in the football game, and I think Kanae's one of those guys that can be a catalyst in a lot of ways. Again, where do you put him? How do you continue to use him? Situationally. We got a couple carries now the last couple games, and we continue to put him in some different spots. We'll continue to find ways to use him because I think he's such a valuable asset, and just making sure we do what he can do to put him and us in the best situation to be successful. Yeah. Sense of humor, with his last name. So Connor really is. I think it's why he's been so successful. He's really kind of dry, to be honest with you. Like I try to mess with him all the time, and it doesn't work very well. But maybe that's why he's got so much confidence. He doesn't listen to me at all, and I don't know what I'm talking about with kicking. So the reality of it is he's a really neat kid. He's a young man that's excelled academically here. He's a young man that's really, when I say consistent, pretty much who he is, what his demeanor's like. He's the same guy every day, and I do really appreciate that and admire about him, and I think it's been a huge foundation to why he's had so much success, especially that it was a pressure-packed competition, and for him to come out of it as a winner, it is a lot of credit to him, and I think who he is and why he is who he is has allowed him to have the success he's having. Yeah, I think it's and it starts with this week, as you look at our football team, you look at where we're at, and ultimately where we want to go, and here's another opportunity for this football team to go play what is one of the favorite teams in our conference to win the conference championship. You got to go on the road and you got to play a great football team at their place. Where is our football program? Can we be a team that can go compete with these people and have the opportunity to win these football games? You know, and I think that this football team, where we are, where we want to go, what the strides we want to make as a program, I think every one of these games from here on out is an unbelievable opportunity for this football team to continue to take a step forward. So, carrot, opportunity, whatever you want to make it, it's one day at a time, and it's really one game at a time, and it starts this Saturday. So I think a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity for this football team. Yeah, Braxton's really special. You know, Braxton's one of those guys that you've heard me say this multiple times too, is make me play you. And Braxton is one of those guys in our football program that literally has made us play him. He's a guy who has relentlessly gotten the most out of what he can do week in and week out, day in and day out in this program. He's been a great leader. I don't know where we would be really in the defensive backfield right now without him. And yeah, he did play a good game versus Akron. He got an interception, but I would challenge you to go back to the last 2 weeks and really watch him play versus some elite ability and elite talent. And you know, his games that he's played has been really impressive. And so, you know, he has done everything this program has asked him to do. You know, he is certainly an excellent student off the field. He's on our leadership council here. He's a guy that I think when you talk to our football team and of guys that who do they follow, who do they listen to, who do they believe in because of how they carry themselves consistently in our program. Braxton's one of the first names out of young men's mouths. So I can't say enough great things about who he is and certainly what he's doing for our football team.